Welcome to Cheery Conversations and Happy New Year. Today we are revisiting some of our most favorite and the most inspirational conversations we've had this past year. And listen, we know that this last year has been full of unexpected surprises. But here at Cheery, we hope that we've been able to give you some unexpected joy, hope, a few laughs, and a whole lot of cheery. So hit that share button. Let your friends and family join in on watching the conversations with you today. Welcome to Cheery Conversations. This is season 3.
Yes, if you count Jesus plus life.
Yes, there is a little confusion.
Okay.
I mean, I've had the question because there was Jesus plus life, and then we had Cheery Conversations and Cheery Conversations. So,
right.
But we're counting the Jesus plus life because really that was the start of it.
Right.
That was the start of it.
Right.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the life of Cheery Conversations.
Yes.
But
with special guest, Casey.
I did this, but I didn't know if this was going to be weird. So I don't ever feel
Of course it's going to be weird.
I don't ever feel like I'm the guest because I just love being there, like with people. But I did make up my own guest card.
Oh my word.
So, on today's show, we're with Sonny and special guest.
And she's still introducing herself. And with special guest, and throughout this, you're going to see this is not an outtake. This is the legit
real thing.
First episode in season 3. We're going to give you some outtakes, some, what do they call those? Spoofs? Like the things that didn't make the cut.
Not spoilers.
No. The fun stuff.
Yeah.
This fun stuff you don't see that is way more fun. And we're going to show some of that today. But this is the real deal, and it's still out of control. Casey is a wife. Casey is a wife to BJ. Yes, they both have initials for their name.
It's for real.
It's not Casey with an EE or BJAY. It is the initials. Okay, they've been married for 19 years. She is mom to beautiful Kalia, who is 15 and successfully completed driver's ed.
Yes.
Lots of time in the car holding her breath and using her fake passenger side foot brake. I love this. I don't know what's being said. She also has a 13-year-old son, Kave, who wouldn't want he to say anything else about him because it's absolutely not cool. She wrote this.
Yeah, I did write
this
that.
This is Casey with us today. So you have been the host of Cheery Conversations the last 2 seasons, except for Zoom calls in the pandemic.
Yes.
It was me with somebody like Tamika Jones and Hushmarine Griffin and Robin Wilkerson. And so if you missed those, they're spectacular.
So good. They're so good. Not because I'm not on them.
Right.
They're just really good guests.
We have no confidence problem, clearly. We will defend our own selves. No, it wasn't because Casey wasn't there. It was just like we were like stay at home unless you're going to the grocery store at that point.
Yeah, so this is what is so cool about Cheery Conversations. So it started as Jesus plus life because Pastor Sonny author Sonny, Hennessy, wrote an amazing book, which really started, you wrote that for the girls of the church.
Right,
like you
for
wanted
the retreat.
to disciple them. But it has such amazing content in it that it was kind of decided we needed to get that out. And so Jesus plus life was the first season.
Right.
And it was Sonny and then just guests.
Right.
I mean, not just guests, but guests. There was no host. And it was in this little apartment
above the exchange that we Airbnb out.
Yep. Everyone looks different because that was like 4 years ago.
It was over 3 years ago. I look at it. It was when I was going through health issues, and I look at my skin and my hair and my eyebrows, the lack of them. And I look at me and I'm like, whoa, I look different. And a lot of us look different.
Yeah.
So it was a while ago. Yeah. And the reason we started it was to be a voice to what does the Bible have to say about juicy topics. Now, we didn't have the whole Cheery Conversations juicy topics at that point. We were like, how do we add Jesus to our life? Because life is crazy and there's lots going on. And rather than looking to self-help books, self-help authors, look to the Bible.
Yeah.
But then how do you look to the Bible and then unpack it in a way that seems understandable? And so that's where the show came from, which was not a podcast. But now we have podcasts and a show. And then you came on as the host why? Because I don't know what's going on every week, right?
No, so Sonny never knows the questions that are being asked, which I think that is such a gift that you're able to just
Maybe it's I don't like preparation. It's work. I say I do better because I don't know. I just think I don't want to use mind space until we're there.
So
because if you go to coffee, you don't get like an email.
Like here's what we're gonna talk about.
This is our agenda, and I feel like
true.
this is not coffee. If we're being honest, Hers is empty. Mine's got water.
For being honest, like there's something else in there.
There's some vodka. No, there's not vodka. It's clear, but I don't do vodka. Anyway, this is like a conversation. That's the whole point. And so then it morphed to, and we came up with, explain the title and the byline and how we came up with the heart.
Well, that was really in North Carolina. We went to this really cool like writers conference.
Yeah. Lisa Turkhurst.
Yeah, it was
tag her.
Really
She'll
cool.
Totally not.
I've never had an experience quite like that. So we got to hear from a lot of different things, and really the idea of it really came from Pastor Sonny. But I mean, cheery conversations, juicy topics. There's so many topics that people are kind of afraid to talk about because. And some of our topics aren't necessarily juicy or cheery, but they're topics that happen in everyday life. And just like you said before, we really want to show viewers and listeners that you're not alone in what you're going through. That's why we have different guests every week to talk about these things so you can relate to other people. But we always, always, always want to point to Jesus.
So I think just in my experience, you really... If we're sitting here having a conversation, it's really easy to be joyful because I don't have my phone and I don't have I'm not stressed out by anything else because we're here and we're present. I think in everything that I do, that's what I'm trying to do, is when I'm homeschooling the kids, like I don't have my other distractions. So then it's really easy to be joyful. Even when you're like folding laundry and doing the normal stuff, if you're just doing that thing, I think it's so easy to be joyful.
Oh my goodness. That's such good insight.
If you just do the one thing, right? Like when I'm running the business or, talking with staff or having a one-on-one with somebody that's on the staff, it's just like if you're totally present, like how can you not be joyful, right?
That is so true.
So that's a wrap. We call that cheery conversation. It's all you need to know. I feel like this is a little like Bright Mornings. There's like this nugget and you chew on it and it's like, why was that so small and simple? But absolutely
so impactful.
So impactful.
Yeah. I think about because when I am folding my laundry, I'm also thinking about, I have to do like the other 10 things, which then causes the stress. And if someone then asks me a question, someone being my kids or someone, you snap because you're not staying focused. That was so good.
But that kind of leads what I want to ask you is so my kids are little. It's so easy, I think, to have little ones because you're their everything. You're the center of their world. You're they rely on you for everything. So I think it's a lot easier for me to be there with them and be, blowing their minds with oh my gosh, the world is round. In homeschool, he was looking at a map and I was like, but this ocean is this ocean. They're the same. Look at the globe. And he's like, oh, he was so excited. But I'm curious, how do you keep, when your kids get older, how are you guys being present with your kids and, finding that time to spend with them and really maintaining that relationship with them?
Well, let me first point out, you just said something that is 100% perspective, which is the opposite of what we hear a lot of women say in the world, which is, you just said, I think it's the easiest because my kids are young. That's a perspective, that's a mind shift. That's just what you said earlier about being in the moment. It's this one narrowly focused, really smart way of looking at it. You're blessed and excited and think it's easiest that they're this age. Whereas some would say, oh my gosh, my kids are so young and it's so hard and I can't keep their attention and it's difficult. And they go into the day, they go into the year, they go into the moment already defeated, and you go into it thinking it's easier. And I'm thinking I have it the best, especially in a pandemic with teenagers, because I don't have them under my feet saying, mommy, mommy, and I'm like, I'm actually like, hey, knock, knock, do you want to come play like Elsa and Anna? I'm like, Aubrey, you want to build a snowman? Or Isaiah, hi, I just wanted to talk.
Right.
And so for me, I feel like I have it the easiest and the best because they're my friends. We can have these conversations that are, really just logical and mature, and they're not under my feet. And so I think how we do it, you can answer this too. How do you do it and connect with them? I think going into it with that perspective of, I have the greatest aged children right now.
So it's funny, I feel like with friends, finding the right close friends is like dating. It really is. You might And it is funny. When you think back to like when you're a young mom and you're like at the park, you're like look at you like she looks nice, like her kids are the same
So
age.
true.
Like should I talk to her? Is she gonna think I'm weird? Like our kids are playing together now. So it's kind of like dating where you kind of or an interview. You could view it as kind of like that. Like you hang out a few times and see if you click. And some people you're just like. You might have just extreme differences. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some of my friends and we have like very different philosophies of life and parenting and stuff, and we still get along really well. But I'd say most of my real close friends, we have the same roots, kind of, you know what I mean? Spiritually, and our goals as parents are the same. Maybe we have different like methods and philosophies of actual parenting, but I think our goals are the same. So I think, and you have to be, like, it has to be someone you can be really comfortable around. And I'm not a competitive person, and that's hard for me to be. We have such a competitive culture in mothering these days. Everything's on social media, and everyone you post your highlight reel, and then people are, it's just constantly competing, and we cannot buy into that. And so I've been in those situations too, though, when you're in a group of moms and everyone's, trying to top each other and they know best, and that's hard. We need to, I feel like that's not a healthy situation to be in. So, yeah.
So that would be good advice for moms that are watching or soon to be moms, that self-awareness is huge, right? We may be very opinionated. Well, we probably are. Like what we believe, that's our opinion. We could talk about that. But to be self-aware, to know, okay, I don't know of these 4 ladies who breastfeeds, who doesn't, who vaccinates, who doesn't, who who gives solid food at this month. And being self-aware, I think, is important. And then knowing who to like let your guard down with and go, okay, like we're together one-on-one, we so have this foundation, now let's talk about why do you go that direction. But I think I've seen it go really awry, like you're talking about, where you can have just such a huge competitive circle. And I think shrinking that circle down to, like you said, the ones that you really know your goals are the same. So I think on both sides, like I have to be self-aware as a mom, and like if I were 100% a homeschool mom, but you're a public school mom of our teenagers, which that's not the case for us. I mean, right now we're both on the verge of homeschooling again. But like to have that be the angst between us, just silly.
And I think too, it like you always talk about comparison and how it's the great crippler. And I think that is in so like every aspect of our life. And so when it comes to parenting too, I know I just learned that it does my kids a disservice to try to parent them the way someone else parents their kids, because all of our families are so different, and each of our kids are so different. Even
our own kids have to be parented separate, different.
And so I think you just have to have that confidence that, as a parent, if you're focused on being a really good parent and you're centered in wanting Jesus to be the center of your family and your parenting and everything, like be confident in that. And so like if you have friends who are like, well, we only do homeschool, or I'm gonna stay at home full time versus the office, like celebrate what they feel is best for their family, like celebrate that with them, and then be totally confident about what you're doing with your family.
It's funny, like now I feel like within the last probably like 6 or 7 months, we've established a better routine with, now we have Oakley, our 7-month-old, and Clayton's in school for a few days a week. So it's definitely like Wednesday nights are our family days. Nice. That's like non-negotiable. We're not at the gym. I think the hardest thing for us is when, Chase is at our facility from 4 o'clock until 8 o'clock at night, and he comes home and is just all like, and I'm like, whoa, I'm in mom mode. Like I'm not in business owner mode. And there's that entrepreneur mind of like, oh, but I want to be there with you, but I'm not. Like I just gave our kids a bath or wiped my kid's butt, or you know what I mean? Like,
juicy topics.
Like, I mean, there is that. Like I'm not in business owner mode right now.
Right.
So
we came up with a code word. Actually, it didn't have to do with when to shut it off. When we used to argue more.
What's your code word?
Our code word was rhubarb.
Okay. Rhubarb.
And it was always like, we're now fighting about something that doesn't have anything to do with the conversation. We're just, and it was like, we have to, because we could say stop, okay, done, but we're both so similar that we would just keep going or want the final word. And so rhubarb, we didn't use it perfectly, but it was kind of like when we said that, it was like, we are pulling out the like jump cord, like we've got to stop.
Right.
And I do wonder if people had, the schedule, like we know Wednesday nights, he's going to come home, or that's the family night,
Yep.
but maybe Tuesday nights he comes home and he's so excited that okay, this is our rhythm. And if classes change, I think about this, if life changes, if our kids' school schedule changes, then our season changes and now we have to relook at our calendar. And I think our calendar runs us, our work runs us, but we can run them. Like I can put in my calendar family night, which we have Tuesday night family night. So we went to Texas Roadhouse. Had we not had that in our calendar, we all wanted to be home. In fact, a lot of times we try to say, do you just want to go home? But we know we'll all four go to different parts of the house. That's not good.
That's not family night.
That's not family night.
Right.
It's worth the money to go to Texas Roadhouse or worth the money to rent a movie on Hulu or something because we've put it in our calendar. So I think it's working your calendar, and then when the schedule changes, we're gonna rework when's family night, when's let's talk about it. And I think it keeps everybody accountable. And I share my invite to family night with Sean.
Actually, this might sound strange, but in a warped kind of way, I'm really excited about what's going on. Not because of the difficulties and the challenges that come with those things, but because I see it as a huge opportunity for what God is trying to do in the church. And, even when the pandemic first broke out and churches and businesses and all that had to start closing, what hit my spirit really hard was God was saying, this is an opportunity. I am, telling the churches to get beyond those four walls so they can reach people that they never would have been able to reach, butts in chairs, right? So it's one of those things that we can look at it as, oh, this is different and it feels uncomfortable. Right. Or we can look at it as, what is God doing here? What is he doing? Because, we all know Romans 8:28 says God can use all things for the good. And this is no exception. So, he doesn't make bad things happen, but he can certainly use whatever happens to usher in change. And I guess the word in my spirit that I always hear is shift. Like God's ushering in a shift. And he is looking for his people to rise up to that, rise up to the call and answer that call and start moving in a direction that, we may not always understand right at first, but he sure does.
Yeah. It's interesting because you say you're a bit excited. I felt expectant. And I remember the first couple weeks of the pandemic, so that would have been March, April, I remember feeling this urgency that let's make the most of this, because if this all goes away in 2 weeks, I don't want it to be wasted. I want to use the opportunity. So it's interesting, you got opportunity. Now, 6 months later, I'm not so worried that it's not gonna go away or that it's gonna go away too quick. I'm more like, it can't be for nothing.
Right.
When it comes to salvations, when it comes to people really getting their house in order. What would you say, because you've been in church and a Christian for years, right?
Yeah, 20 some years.
Okay, so as a Christian, as someone who went to a church for all those years, what would you just say to someone who's like, but the church needs to get back to how it was. We need to stand up for our freedom. What would you say to that person?
I think freedom is busting beyond the four walls. I think church is not a building, and I'm sure we've all in some respect heard that statement, but church is the people, it's the hearts that are aligned, it's the Christian community. So I would say, how are we being fed? I mean, I don't think it's going to be uncommon for someone who lives in Tennessee to say, I go to Life Church in Green Bay. Think about the possibilities there. These are people that would never have had exposure to the different churches around the world, and now there are doors opening up for people to get fed in beautiful ways. And so I think that it would be a lost opportunity for us to not embrace what God is trying to do with all of this and, not be so close-minded. Those what just came to my mind is, you know, those apps where you can buy something online and then you can hold it up and you can see what it would look like in your own room.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like sometimes we hold things up to the only filter we know, the only room we know, you know, and we see how it fits in there. And God's going, I want to put it in a completely different room.
Yeah, that's really good.
You know, so that's just sort of the feel I get with this.
That's so great.
Almost too, when I think of that money flow, that funnel, that we receive more based on the value we give to the world. So we are receiving more because if we're adding value, it's almost like an exchange of value. And
So good.
so I love that mindset. That's helped me come to grips with it. And I think that I really relate to the poverty mindset, because I think at one point in my Jesus journey, I thought I had to be a missionary in a third world country to be sold out for Jesus. And I felt like I had this contradiction within me when I felt called to business and knew that he was calling me to business. I felt like, how can I do business and do this poverty lifestyle? And you can't do both, but you can still have the same heart and the same mindset of like, I glorify the Lord in whatever I do.
Right.
And so attracting people to you so that you can share the gospel, whether you're a missionary or a pastor or a businesswoman or all of the above. Yeah, it's all about pointing people back to him.
And I think the love of money, that's different than
Yes,
having money.
absolutely.
Having money isn't evil. The love of money is evil.
Yes.
And then the non-generous spirit, that's where we get in trouble. But
Yes.
if I'm not generous with $10, I'm not going to be generous with 1,000. I'm not going to be generous with 100,000. So I'm glad God worked it out in me to say, okay, your tithe isn't very much. You don't make much money, but I need you to do it. So then you get there, you do it, and then you give a little more, and you go, I like being generous, or it feels right to be generous. And that generosity is what counteracts the love of money and that being evil.
The gratitude with that. And I think also when you're new in business, I think really being obedient and disciplined with your money management. I think this is huge in the Christian business world, is that we can bring and show people like the goodness of God by just us being disciplined with what he's already given us, because then there will, you know, we trust that he will provide more so we can give him more glory.
So with Xavier, I actually, and I don't know if I told you this, but with Xavier, I was in ultrasound, and I'm high risk because of my uterus. And so all my pregnancies, I'm in quite a bit. And when he was doing an ultrasound, the specialist was doing an ultrasound, and he says, okay, well, I see a tumor. And I said, okay. And I said, I think I can see it. And he's like, it's a good size. You can see it on the ultrasound. And I said, okay. And so for the pregnancy with Xavier, I was going, okay, so there's a tumor there. We can't do anything about it at this point because it's on my cervix. And my OB had said, you know what, when we go in to get Xavier, if the tumor is connected to your cervix, I'm gonna have to take some of your cervix out. And I said, okay. And he said, hopefully it's just on this little arm thing and it's just floating around and I can just snip it off and we will be good. And I prayed so hard, Sonny, that, you know, at first it was, let it have an arm, let it have an arm, let it have an arm. Because I had wanted a larger family than 3 children. But then I started praying, you know what? Why don't you do what you see fit? If you want me to have more children, God, if you want that, take care of it how you see fit.
So good.
And I went in for the scheduled C-section, and my OB delivered Xavier, healthy, chunky baby boy. He was my biggest boy by 2 pounds, like my biggest child by 2 pounds. He was huge for me. And I, you know, can feel it, my OB like digging around in there, and he's like, okay, I'm going for Boomer. I called him Boomer, my tumor. Oh gosh.
We told you this would be funny.
Boomer, my tumor.
Yes.
So my OB says, Melissa, I'm going in for Boomer. And I was like, okay. And I'm laying there. And I, like, in my head, I was like, how long is this gonna, holy cow, this is taking forever. And he finally goes, Melissa? I said, yes. He goes, I can't find Boomer anywhere.
Jesus, that's so cool.
And I said, no way. And he goes, I'm telling you, I can't find him. And I just laid there and I just cried. I was like, you
took a tumor away. Yes.
You exceeded my prayers,
Yeah.
my what I had asked you for. You went above and beyond.
Yeah. Well, I love that you said however you see fit rather than specific, although there's times you pray specific.
And I started that way, I did.
Yeah, and sometimes that's great, pray specific, and then he surprises us.
I did it because I was like, well, maybe I'm not supposed to.
So good.
I don't know the rest of my story. I don't know it.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed these conversations. If you want to see the full conversations, you can check them out on our podcast or on YouTube. Thank you for inviting us into your homes this past year. We cannot wait for 2021 and what Cheery has to bring for you.